Hello, everybody. Welcome to Late Night Football. Welcome to our Sunday morning show, which is a transfer roundup show. Didn't do that for a couple of days, so it's good to be back here to be talking about transfers again. Not my most favorite topic to talk about, to be honest. I prefer doing match reactions more, but you know what? Transfers are always exciting, especially when you get rumors. When you get new rumors and new gossip, then it's wonderful. But if you keep getting the same stories over and over and over again from 5 different sources, then it does get boring. But there's quite a few news stories that have come up, so it is exciting to talk about that. It's a wonderful show for you. Please remember to subscribe to our channel if you're new watching this. I mean, we're at 400, almost close to 450 subscribers. So please help us cross that mark. Do appreciate your support. So let's get right into it. I think the biggest story of the day, of course, is the price drop for Goncalo Inacio, who is a Sporting Lisbon defender. And he's been hotly chased by Liverpool. They really want him. And he was actually very highly sought after pretty much from January. And I think what has happened is that over the last probably, let's say, last month or so, because of the stories around the Ligt, because of the stories around Euro, maybe a little bit also Todibo, I think he's kind of gone a little bit under the radar. But it has now come back up again. The Sporting Lisbon wanted about 60 million euros for him at the start of the transfer window. But now they've come back and said, you know what, we can do a deal for maybe around 40 million pounds, which is probably around 45 million euros. So there is a deal to be done. Liverpool are hotly linked with him at this moment in time. I think now that Euro has not happened for Liverpool, they are considering other options and they're looking at Inacio as an option as well. I think he's very highly rated. I haven't seen him play much. I'll be honest about that. But from what little I've seen of him, there's a bit of a lag there, isn't it, in my voice? But nonetheless, hopefully that's not too annoying to people. But from what I've seen of Inacio, from what little I've heard of him and from what little I've seen of him, he seems a decent defender. He seems someone who's got a lot of potential, someone who could go on to become a good defender. So there's definitely potential there to sign. And I think at about 40 million pounds, I think that's a deal that is worth doing. I think anytime you start asking for like over 55 million euros, then you start getting into the territory of is this a deal worth doing? Is this a deal that people can kind of wrap their heads around? But I think at 37.9 or whatever, 40 million pounds. I'm saying 40 million pounds is actually lower than 40 million, but nonetheless, at around 40 million pounds, I think it's a deal that could be worth doing for any club, and I think Liverpool definitely will be interested in that. It's possible that that's why that has happened is because there's I also forgot Brantford actually, by the way. But I think what the reason why Sporting have brought the price is probably they see that there are other players that are more sought after. And there's this Brantwaite, there's obviously Euro was there's Ligt, there's Todibo as well who's sought after. So there's lots of defenders that are sought after, and so maybe they feel that Inacio probably isn't coming into this market as hot as he should. And I think a lot of that also has to do with maybe the Portugal's campaign as well, where they didn't really do that well. I think so therefore there's a lot of cooling on Portuguese players as well. So maybe that has kind of prompted Sporting to go, you know what, we got to reduce if you want to sell him while he's still got some reputation and value, then we've got to reduce the price a little bit. So maybe that's what has happened. For Liverpool, I think if they really need a defender, which it looks like they do, then I think it's a no-brainer. At 40 million pounds, it's a no-brainer. You've got to do that deal. They do need to sign players, and obviously I see FSG out keeps trending on Twitter all the time. I don't know what that's about, but I see that. And it happens every summer. Every summer, FSG out is trending for whatever reason from Liverpool fans. So I don't know why that's happening, but it is happening. So from that perspective, I think Liverpool probably would want to do this deal. It's a deal that is there to be done. It's the kind of deal that Liverpool like to do. A young player who's available for not very much of a price, someone who's got the potential to grow and become better. It is a sort of deal that I think Liverpool would want to do. So I think it is welcome news for Liverpool and probably welcome news for Liverpool fans as well. Let's keep an eye on this one. Manchester United, I don't think they'll be interested in that. If the De Ligt deal is the one that they want to do, then I don't think they'll be looking at Inacio so seriously. But the fact of the matter that if I were a Liverpool fan, the one thing that I would look at Manchester United with a bit of trepidation is the fact that the De Ligt deal has stalled. That one, Horne spoke about it, and we'll talk about Bayern after this. But they have said that they may not, De Ligt may still go. That may still happen, but the transfer fee at the moment is an issue. So that deal is stalled. The Brantwaite deal is as good as dead at this point, from what we're hearing from Everton. So United do need another defender. They might need two, but at least they definitely need one more. So if they need one more, does Inacio become an option? I think that is the thing that I would look at. So from a Liverpool perspective, I think if the price tag is 40 million pounds, I would say just go and get that deal done as quickly as possible. Like move on it, and and we don't know how true it is because this hasn't come from very many reputed sources. It's something that I'm seeing on Twitter. But if that is true, then they've got to move on that as quickly as possible to get that done and get that over the line if they are interested. So anyway, that's one to keep an eye on, and hopefully this one, I think this one will heat up a little bit in the next week. Is when we'll start to see more and more of these sort of rumors, whether it's actually true. If it is true, I think you'll see it heat up this coming week. If it's not true, it will die down, of course, as these things always do. But one to keep an eye on, and certainly very exciting news to start the day off as far as transfers are concerned. The other one, of course, is that Pierre-emile Hojbjerg has completed his move to Marseille. That has been confirmed. Not surprised because he had fallen out of favor with Postecoglou, so he hadn't played much last season. So they were looking to move him on. There was a time when he was very highly rated. There was a time when there were a few big Premier League clubs that were interested in taking him on. He was actually considered very important to Spurs. But I think once Postecoglou has come in, he's got his own players that he wants to look at. And Hojbjerg hasn't had much chance. So I'm not surprised that he's going. And Marseille seem to be doing some good business as well. I mean, they've got Greenwood in, now they've got Hojbjerg in. So maybe De Zerbi is trying to build players, like he's trying to get some of these Premier League players that he's probably looked at and admired, and he's trying to bring them to Marseille. So that is good. That is good from their perspective. But it's a good deal. I think it's a good deal for all parties. I think Hojbjerg benefits from going to a club where he's going to play regular game time. He's still in a top 5 league, of course, in Europe. You've got Spurs get a decent transfer fee for a player they really didn't want to keep, and Marseille get a player that they really wanted. So I think it's win-win. One of those few times when it's a win-win-win situation for everyone. I think definitely this is one of those deals. So well done to Marseille, well done to Hojbjerg, and all the best to him. Going to Marseille, and hopefully he will continue to do well there as well. So that's one that has been done. Another one, of course, is Calafiori. This came out yesterday. We haven't had the chance to talk about it, but it came out yesterday. Arsenal have agreed a fee with Bologna for Riccardo Calafiori. It's 40 million euros plus 5 million euros in add-ons. It's more or less done. Calafiori, of course, has already accepted personal terms. The only thing left now is how the 50% sell-on payments will be made between Basel and Bologna. So basically, Bologna owe 50% of the sell-on clause to Basel. That's the agreement. But what needs to be negotiated is how are they going to structure those payments? Because Bologna probably don't want to pay the full 20 million euros that they owe to Basel all in one go. So they're trying to figure out, okay, can we do maybe 5 million here, 5 million there, like that, some kind of payment plan, so they don't have to pay it all at once. That is what is left to be negotiated. But that is something that Basel and Bologna will negotiate separately. Once that structure is complete, then the deal will become, here we go, and it will be completed. So at the moment, that is where that particular deal is at, is just deciding how that payment structure is going to work. And that's fair. I think that's fair to give it some time. I don't think that will take too long, because now that they've agreed on the payment, on the transfer fee, it means that Bologna know that they're going to lose 20 million euros at some point. So I think it's just a matter of them deciding with Basel, okay, how do we want to make that payment and how do we do that? So I think this one should be done by the next one day, maybe by Monday. I think by tomorrow we'll probably get a here we go from Fabrizio Romano about that, and that's a wonderful deal for Arsenal to complete. I think 40 million euros for a player like that is a steal. I would have to say it's a steal, because he's very highly rated again, had a good Euros. Probably some might say that him not being able to play in that round of 16 matches maybe why Italy lost, but I'm not sure about that. But he had a good Euros. He's had a good season as well with Bologna. Of course, Bologna did really well last season. So he's someone that I think will bring a lot of good things to Arsenal. And once that is complete, I think we can say that Arsenal have got a very good deal on their hands, and hopefully he will do well there. But we'll talk more about anything once that deal is officially confirmed. But I think it's there. It's about 98% there. I think we're just about 2% out now, and that should be done very, very soon. So well done to Arsenal for that. And also Amadou Onana, not Andre Onana. Amadou Onana has completed his medical with Aston Villa. That has also been confirmed by Fabrizio Romano. Another good deal. I think 50 million pounds, I think, is a transfer fee. And we've spoken about it before. I think, for me, Aston Villa is a good place for him to go, because I don't think he's quite ready for a move to a top club just yet. He's got that attitude problems, which Everton fans have spoken about. He didn't have the best of Euros either with Belgium. So I do feel that maybe, going to and I wanted him at Manchester United, actually. But then once I've heard about these things, I felt like, okay, you know what, maybe he's not ready for that kind of step up. I think Aston Villa is good at this moment in time, because he'll play Champions League football for a year at least. he'll be able to kind of develop there. And if he can sort out his attitude problems, if he can sort out his on-field off-field issues, then I think big clubs will be interested in him. And by that I don't just mean Manchester United, but there are lots of clubs that will be looking for CDMs in the near future, and he will be a good signing for them if he can prove that he can do this. The issue that people talk about is the fact that he gets up for big games. He's very, very tenacious and very, very energetic when it comes to the big games. But then when he plays against sort of the smaller teams, or when he is playing those sort of mundane games where you have to pick up 3 points, he just doesn't perform. He doesn't perform, and that's kind of the frustration. So that consistency of performance, I think, is an issue for him, and they feel that that's because of his attitude, because he's more interested in securing big moves to big clubs. So he tries to play in those sort of high profile games is where he performs, but then the other ones he doesn't. So that is an accusation that is leveled at him. I haven't seen him enough to know whether it's true or not. I mean, I've always seen him play when Everton play United, or when Everton play Liverpool. I've seen those games, and he seems to be okay in those games. I haven't seen him when Everton play for example, a Nottingham Forest or some sort of game like that. So obviously it could be true. It could be true that he only performs, he chooses when to perform and when not to perform. But at the same time, I don't know. I haven't seen enough of him to know. So I'm going off of what I've heard, around the grapevine, so to speak. So yeah, but nonetheless, I think it's a good move for him, and I think good thing for Everton as well, because they need the money, they need the transfer fee, and I think £50 million for a player like Onana is good. For them to do. They have now, and what it does mean is that they will keep Brantwaite. Now that is what they're thinking, that they're going to keep Jared Brantwaite for at least another year. And that's something as well that I think they wanted to do. They didn't want to sell him right now, not unless they got a lot of money for him. I think another season for Brantwaite in the Premier League will help Everton, and it will help him as well, maybe increase his transfer value. So again, a good deal all around for all the clubs involved. More news, of course, is on Juventus and Nice. Now, they're discussing a transfer for Jean-Clair Todibo. Now, Todibo was very heavily linked with Manchester United at the start of the transfer window. And many people assume, because Nice are owned by Ineos as well, so I think many people assume that was a done deal. Like, Todibo is going to join Manchester United. Like, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. They'll do a negotiation, they'll put in a bid, and it will be done very, very quickly. As it turned out, United are not allowed to sign any players from Nice this coming season, which is a bit of a shame, but that is the ruling that UEFA has put in. So therefore, that meant that Todibo, if he was going to leave Nice, he had to go somewhere else. And so the negotiation right now is going on between Juventus and Nice for a transfer for Todibo. Todibo has already agreed personal terms with Juventus. Juventus have been looking for a centre back, I think, and they have been looking for centre backs quite often, because they still know. I don't think they've been able to replace Bonucci, Chiellini really effectively. I think they're still looking for players to be able to do that, and so they need another centre back. And they're looking at Todibo for that reason. I think he's a good centre back, and he's got a lot of potential and a lot of development ahead of him. And they're looking at the moment whether they can sign him. And at this moment in time, I think they're saying that the transfer fee that they're willing to pay is not going to be more than 40 million euros, which I think is fair. I think United were probably looking at about 35 million pounds, which comes to about 40 million euros. So I think it's a fair fee. If they look at around 40 million euros, then I think that's a fair fee to put in place and to say, right, we're going to pay 40 million euros. But that is the negotiation, that they don't want to pay more than that. Maybe Nice are thinking, because we're not selling him to Manchester United, which would have been just a 1-to-1. Let's try and charge maybe a bit more. Let's try and look for a bit more of a transfer fee. Maybe look at 45-50. I'm not sure. I've not seen much of him. I've heard a lot of him. I've not seen much of him, so I'm not sure what a realistic transfer fee would be. But I think 40 million euros is a good. Maybe you can do add-ons and then get it up to 45 or 50 million. But definitely you wouldn't want to be looking at more than not more than 45 million euros surely as an upfront payment. I think 40 million euros should be okay. So I can see where Juventus are coming from, but again, one to keep an eye on. But they will be in discussions. They will do that deal. I think it's a good deal for Juventus to do, because they do need a centre back, and therefore I think I can see this one getting done quickly as well. And it was unfortunate for Todibo that he couldn't go to Manchester United, but at the same time, I think Juventus is definitely not a step down by any means. I think it is a lateral move. At worst, it's a lateral move. Some would probably say Juventus are a better club than Manchester United, but definitely it would be a good move for Todibo to go to Juventus if he can make it there. So let's see how quickly that one gets done. But it is another one that's coming along. And then finally, I think we're going to talk about PSG. And they are now thinking of moving for Osimhen and Neves. Now, those two deals are being discussed and being thought about. We've talked about Osimhen, talked about Neves quite a while. They've said that they're going to. It's been reported that they're going to move on them next week. Those are the two deals that they will work on. They will try to accelerate it. The issue with Osimhen, of course, is the transfer fee, because Napoli are notoriously difficult in negotiations, and they will probably say no, we're not going to give him for much less than his release clause. He's got 130 million euros release clause. And as I have said it many times, there's no way any club should be paying that fee for Osimhen this season, because he hasn't had that good of a season. He's injury prone. He's not a 120 million pound player by any stretch of imagination. So PSG are trying to negotiate that down. Osimhen wants to go to PSG, but Napoli, of course, are probably holding firm, and they might even ask 100 million pounds. I can't say how you go. I can't see if you have a 120 million pound release clause, and you want to sign and you want to keep that player. I don't think you can go lower than 100 million pounds. And that's when Napoli had probably, boxed themselves into a corner. Because it's one thing, if you want to sell a player, right, and if you have 120 million pounds, it doesn't matter. You can sell him for 40, 50. It doesn't really matter, right? But because he has a 120 million pound release clause, which is unrealistic, but nonetheless it's there, and you said publicly that you want to keep the player, then, to stake anything less than 100 million pounds would probably be a little bit embarrassing, especially for a club like Napoli, which prides itself on saying, no, we are very much about keeping players. We don't negotiate. We negotiate very hard. We play hardball. I don't think they can go lower than 100 million pounds. And should PSG pay 100 million pounds for Osimhen? I would say no. I would say Osimhen at best for me, because the striker market is so bare at the moment. You say that he's probably an 80 million pound player. He's not really 80 million pounds. I would probably say in a very good striker market, if you had lots of talented and good strikers to choose from, Osimhen would probably be closer to 70, 75 million pounds at most. But I think in this market, you could probably say he's probably 80, 85 million pounds, because there's not that many good strikers out there at the moment. And PSG do need to replace Mbappe, but that's the maximum. 80, 85 is the maximum. 100 million pounds seems excessive, but how do Napoli go lower than 100 million pounds? They can't. Not when you've got 120 million pound release clause to play with. You can't go lower than 100 million pounds. So it is a problem that will have to be resolved, and it will be interesting to see which club comes out the winner in this, because there is going to be a winner and there's going to be a loser in this transfer. I don't think there can be a winner in this transfer just with the way that the dynamics have worked. So I am kind of intrigued and keen on seeing how this transfer gets resolved. Now, it could be something where you have a lot of bonuses and add-ons and stuff like that, and maybe that pleases everyone. But I feel like this is one of those transfers where there's going to be a winner and there's going to be a loser at the end of it. So I'm keen on that. Napoli, of course, are looking at Romelu Lukaku as a replacement for Osimhen. So they've also kind of decided. So they kind of know maybe that Osimhen will go. And that is good news for PSG. That means that there's more amenable negotiations that are possible. But Napoli are looking at Lukaku as possible replacement, maybe an add-on to Osimhen. And again, but they have to negotiate with Chelsea. And Chelsea want 40 million euros for Lukaku. By the way, they paid 100 million pounds for him. By the way, now they're willing to stake 40 million euros for him. Napoli has said they can only pay 25 million euros. They said we can't pay more than 25 million euros for Lukaku. Do you want to do the deal? So I don't know. I don't know about that one. I'm not sure if that's a deal that would work for either party. It's a 15 million euro gap, which is quite a significant gap when we're talking about only 40 million euros. I think Chelsea. The thing with Lukaku is that he's got a very long contract. I think he's got another, because I think he signed a 5+1 contract. So technically, he's still got at least 2 more years, maybe 3 more years on this contract. I'm sure Chelsea will want to get a transfer fee for him. The problem for Lukaku is that I don't think he's had very good seasons anywhere. Even he went to Inter, he won the league with Inter, but he wasn't necessarily that good. He wasn't central to them winning the league. He had some good performances, but not really that good. He went to Roma on loan. Again, he had a good season at Roma. I wouldn't say he had a world-class season, but he had a good season at Roma. And then the question is, okay, well, I've had a good season at Roma, but now Roma don't want to sign him. The problem is he's going to these clubs, where he's performing quite well, but they're clubs that are not going to put big transfer fees out there. The big clubs have pretty much given up on Lukaku. No big club is ever going to want Lukaku. He had his chance with Manchester United. He had his chance with Inter. With Inter, he did really well, and then Chelsea kind of forked out that money for him. So he had his chance at United. He had his chance at Chelsea, and he flopped there. No other big club is going to buy him, which means they're never going to recoup the 100 million pounds they paid for him. They're not even going to get 50 million pounds for him, because it seems like he's more of a Serie A striker. Like, he really does well in Serie A. Now, PSG might be an option, but PSG are never looking at him. So his only option is either Serie A or Bundesliga. I don't think he fits Bundesliga, but even if he were to go to the Bundesliga, nobody's going to pay. In Bundesliga and Serie A, you're not going to get clubs that are going to pay 50, 60 million pounds for him. You're not. You're going to get these kind of 25, 30 million euro transfer fees for him, which means that Chelsea are going to have to take a massive loss. What Chelsea are trying to do is they keep loaning him out, hoping that he will play really well one season, and that some big club, some sucker will come in and say, right, we're going to pay 60, 70 million pounds for him, and here you go. But that's not going to happen. I think no club is stupid enough now to pay that much for Lukaku. Everybody has seen him. Everybody knows what he's about. He's a striker who's going to get you a lot of goals. He's going to do well in a small club, with low expectations. And and that's will happen. But other than that, there will never be a situation where that can be resolved. So that's going to be a problem. And just give me sorry about that. Yeah, it's still okay. That's still a problem there that is happening streaming. Yeah, there's too much background. Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, so okay, let's do that. Yeah, so Lukaku is going to be an issue with that because they keep asking for a lower transfer. People keep asking for they're giving them to clubs, smaller clubs who cannot really afford to pay for him. So Lukaku is a conundrum for Chelsea to resolve. I think they should take whatever they get this season. I think they really should take whatever they get this season from whatever club. I think if Napoli are interested, sell him, cut your losses, sell him for about because you have to pay him. The big issue also is his wages, and I think Chelsea subsidized his wages when he went to Inter. They subsidized his wages when he went to Roma. So they keep having to subsidize his wages as well. So I would just say if Napoli are interested in paying 25, 30 million euros, take that deal. Take that deal, cut your losses, move on, save yourself that money of whatever you have to pay Lukaku for that year. But that's just my opinion. And I'm sure Chelsea probably know more about business than I do, and they probably see it as well. What is the best way to do business with him? That would be very, very interesting and they're the masters of business, right? So they probably know more than I do. But that's how I would operate if I were the owner of Chelsea. I would say, you know what? Let's just cut our losses with this guy. This guy is not going to make us any money. He's not going to make us a profit anyway. And the more we keep him, he gets older, the lower his value goes. There's no big club that's coming in for him anytime soon. So I think it's just better if we sell him on and move on from that. So let's see what happens there with Lukaku. And let's talk about Bayern a bit because I think there's a lot of news that's come out of Bayern because Ulay Hones has talked about Bayern. By the way, what do you think about the Lukaku situation? Let me know in the comments. What do you think about the Lukaku situation? Do you think Chelsea should sell him for 30 million euros? Because I think that deal could be done at 30. Do you sell him for 30 million euros? Do you keep him? Do you loan him out and then keep him for another year and hope that again next season maybe some sucker will come and pay a lot of money? What do you think? Let me know in the comment section. Always love to hear your thoughts. Those are my thoughts. I give my thoughts, but I would love to hear what you have to say, of course. And do remember to subscribe to our channel. If you're watching this and you're new, then do remember to subscribe. We're getting close to 450 subscribers. So please do subscribe so we can move on from that. So, but nonetheless, carrying on from there, talking about Bayern because I think that's the big story as well. Bayern Munich. Ulay Hones had a lot of comments to make about Bayern's transfer market strategy this season, what they were going to do in the market. He was talking about that, and he had an interview, and he spoke about a lot of different things. And so there were a lot of nice little sound bites and nuggets that came out of that. And the primary thing from that is the situation with Alphonso Davies. So Alphonso Davies is out of contract at the end of next season. And there's lots of negotiations that are going on, but at the moment there's no new contract. Real Madrid are interested in signing him, and so what has come out right now is that Bayern Munich are basically saying that if Davis doesn't sign a new contract, then they will let him, that he will get nothing, that he will just go on a free transfer next season. They're not going to give him any more the money than what they're already offering him. They said he's not going to get a bigger contract. So he has to either accept it or he has to accept the fact that he's leaving Bayern at the end of next season. So that is where I think it's stalled. I think it's kind of just negotiations have kind of stopped. Real Madrid are interested in signing him on a free transfer next season. I mean, they might even consider making a bid for him now, but that could happen. What is interesting to me is what is Davis's contract demand? Is he asking for too much money? Is he asking for? Do Bayern feel that he's asking for too much money? I don't know what the details are on the wage demands that Davis has, but it is interesting because he is a key player for Bayern Munich. I do feel that his stock was very high in 2020 when Bayern won the treble, but I think since then his stock hasn't been so hot. I don't think he has really been that good in the last 3-4 years. I think his progress has kind of plateaued a little bit, which happens to players, right? It happens where they kind of plateau, they kind of just go. Even it happened to Alaba as well. I think after in 2014 or 2015 he was very highly rated, And then for about 3-4 years after that, he just looked like he had just kind of stalled. Like he was a good defender, but he wasn't really taking that next step until 2020 when he finally took that next step and then got a move to Real Madrid after that. So I think it's the same with Davies. Might have happened as well, that his progress has kind of plateaued a bit, and so maybe he does need to leave to go somewhere else to get better, to get more game time, to get better at his game. He probably needs to go to another league, maybe needs to go to another team to kind of develop his game a little bit more, because right now he feels like he has plateaued. And so maybe Bayern are looking at that as well, going, look, you haven't really progressed the way we thought you would. You're a good defender, but you haven't become a world-class left back. So, we're not going to give you world-class money, and we're not going to give you this kind of crazy contract, because we don't know if you will actually become the player that we thought you would become. So it's going both ways, and from Davis's point of view, don't forget they've got a World Cup in 2 years' time in Canada, right? And he's going to be a star player for Canada. He's going to be a star player for that World Cup, brand for that World Cup. So maybe he was also thinking, I need to up my game a little bit more. He actually plays on the right wing for Canada. He doesn't play as a left back for Canada. For Canada, I think he plays as a right winger. So it's also interesting to think, maybe is he thinking that maybe he needs to go to a club where he can play more as a right winger? I don't think he would be thinking like that, but maybe he is, right? That I need to play more as a right winger. I need to develop my game more so that I can become, this big brand player for Canada when I play for them. It's not ideal that you go into your last year for contract at Bayern, because Bayern could simply freeze him out and say, we're not going to play him because we don't really, because he's not signing a new contract, which is what a lot of clubs often do. If you're not signing a new contract, you won't play, right? And then you lose a year of your career, and then clubs maybe are not so interested in signing you. So it is always a dangerous situation to get yourself into that last year. So I'm sure Davis's agent is probably working overtime to either convince Bayern to give him a new contract, or convince some club to come and say, please sign him, let's get him out of here, because he's only got a year left. So what would the transfer fee for him be if he were to leave this year? I think that would be a question to ask. I would say, based on the market right now, I think Bayern will probably look at about 50 million pounds for him, because if they're asking 40 million pounds for De Ligt, and he is not such a key player, I don't think you can ask anything less than 50 million for Davies, because he is a key player. Yes, he's in the last year of his contract, but he is a key player for Bayern Munich. So they might ask for 50 million pounds. Would any club be willing to pay 50 million pounds for Davies, for a player that is on the last year of his contract, a left back? That is something that is an intriguing decision to make. It is an intriguing decision to make, but that's for a later time to discuss. I don't think Davies will leave. I don't think he's thinking of leaving right now, but I think the fact of the matter that the contract discussion has stalled, this is something we may see probably in August. This might be something to see in August, where maybe Davies goes, I need to leave, right? And I need to move on, and then clubs start activating. And when you get towards the end of the transfer window, right, agents get desperate, players get desperate, clubs get desperate, and then you see these kind of deals happening. So we'll have to keep our ears open to in August. I think this is one that will heat up in August, but it was eye-opening that Hones came out and said, we're not going to give you a bigger contract. You're going to get what you get, and if you don't accept it, you're getting nothing from us. So that was a big statement from him. Another one that was also made was the fact that Bayern have said that they're not going to sell Dayo Upamecano. Like, Upamecano is going to stay, and apparently Kim Min-jae and Dyer also firm players that are going to stay. So if one of the defenders leaves, it's going to be Matthias de Ligt. That is what was said. And Bayern was saying, and Hones was saying, well, he's Dutch. The Manchester United coach is Dutch, so there might be interest. What that tells me is that Bayern are opening to selling De Ligt. They are thinking that they're going to be able to sell De Ligt. They believe that Manchester United will buy De Ligt, which then brings me to the question, are they thinking that at some point they will reduce their price and meet Manchester United? Because I do feel 34 million pounds and 42 million pounds is not a major gap, right? It's a major gap in terms of 8 million pounds, but because you're negotiating between two clubs that are kind of rich, you could get to about 37, 38 million pounds as a compromise, and then you do the deal. I think anything, as I said, anything over 40 million pounds for De Ligt puts it into the sort of overpriced category, and 34 million pounds would have been a steal in some ways. But I think somewhere in between becomes the sweet spot. So I think again, what we will see is, because Bayern's deal for Jonathan Tah. Now this is where there is that X factor of Jonathan Tah. Jonathan Tah is a player that Bayern Munich won, but they can only do the deal for Jonathan Tah if they can get rid of a defender, which right now seems to be Matthias de Ligt. So if they get rid of Matthias de Ligt, then they will move for Jonathan Tah. Now it depends. Do they really want Jonathan Tah? Is Jonathan Tah a player that they really want? Because if that is a deal that they really want to do, then they will be, then at some point they will start thinking, what, we need this defender. We don't want to keep De Ligt, right? We're getting Tah is not that expensive, by the way. So they should be able to make a profit from those two deals. So they will be thinking, we want to bring in Tah, we want to get rid of De Ligt. We've got Manchester United who are interested. Let's sit down, let's negotiate, and let's get a deal done, because we don't want to keep this player. Now, if they've said, Ta is not really an upgrade on what we have, he was anyway going to be third or fourth choice anyway if he was coming, then what would happen is they would think, you know what, we can work with Delict. We don't really need Ta. We can work with Delict. We don't want to sell him. But to me, it feels like they want to let go of Delict. From what I could tell from Vanessa's comments, my opinion, and feel free to disagree with me in the comment section. Say that if you feel you disagree. I just feel that Bayern want to sell Delict. Hunes was trying to be coy about it, but I think they want to sell Delict. They don't want to keep him. The coach probably doesn't want him. They want to sell him. And so that, but at the moment, what is happening is they don't want to sell him for too less, because then you feel like you've been taken advantage of. So they're trying to squeeze as much as they can out of Manchester United because of the reputation that United have. But what is happening is that with every passing day, that window is getting shorter and shorter. What Bayern have been helped by, but Bayern probably weren't helped by the fact that United went and got Euro, because that was probably a deal. If they hadn't done that, then they would have been more desperate. But now they've got Euro in, so now United are going to have to sell maybe Lindelof or Maguire. Then they can go back in for De Ligt. And with each passing day, Bayern will get more and more desperate to try and sell, because they'll be thinking, well, we need to get rid of this player. This player only wants to go to Manchester United. There is a deal that has to be done. And then we have got to do it. So I think that is where that will go. The longer this goes on, I think more advantageous position will be for Manchester United, because right now United don't need a central defender. They don't need another central defender in terms of numbers. Obviously, they need a central defender because the two that they have in subs are crap. So they do need a central defender, but not in terms of numbers. So when they let go of Lindelof or Maguire, then they will need another centre back. I think I think that's when maybe the things will change. But for now, the advantage is with Manchester United. I think Bayern Munich are trying to get back some control by saying, yeah, maybe one will leave, but we're happy with what we have. So I think that deal will get done. I think a lot will depend on how desperate Bayern are to get Jonathan Tah, how desperate are they to get rid of De Ligt, and how quickly they can compromise on a deal with Manchester United. So I think those are the factors there. But I think from what I could tell from Honest's comments, and I could be wrong, but from what I could tell, they do want to sell De Ligt. They want to do a deal for De Ligt. They just want a little bit more money, and they're trying to get Manchester United to fork out more money, but they do want to do that deal, and they do want to sell him. So that is on that what I got. The other bombshell, so not bombshell really, but what I think is expected is that Bayern Munich are interested in signing Florian Wirtz. And what we have read into that is that Florian Wirtz is probably going to be Bayern's number one target 2025. Now, Wirtz has already said he's not leaving this summer. He's going to stay at Leverkusen. He had a very good season for Leverkusen. He was quite good for Germany as well. And so they've said that, he said he's going to stay for one more year. He's going to play Champions League football with Leverkusen. But I think Bayern is saying we want Wirtz and we want him next season. Again, it's a very Bayern thing. Leverkusen are the top club right now in Germany. So, you can't beat them, take their best players. They did that with Leipzig. They're going to do that with Leverkusen as well. They want to bring in Wirtz. He's, of course, one of the best players in Germany as well at the moment. So obviously it's natural that Bayern feel that, you're the best player in Germany. You've got to play for Bayern Munich, right? So I can see why they're acting on that deal. But I think Wirtz will have a lot of suitors next season. And I think Bayern know that. And that's why they're trying to get an early start by saying, yeah, we want him. We'll try and sign him. We'll bring him. Because that would be a cool if they could pull it off. There will be interest from Manchester City. I think there'll be interest from many other clubs. Maybe Real Madrid might be interested. You might even see other clubs like, I'm not sure Barcelona, but I can see a lot of big clubs being interested in him next season. Definitely Manchester City and Real Madrid will be absolutely interested in him, but there might be other clubs as well, maybe who will be saying, we may want to sign him. So he's going to be very sought after next summer. And I think Bayern are just getting ahead of that by saying, we also want him and we will do everything that we can to sign him. It wouldn't surprise me if they begin negotiations with Bayern, begin negotiations, back channel negotiations with Wirtz as early as probably in January or February. It wouldn't surprise me one bit if they did that, because they would want to sign him and they will be saying, yeah, we want to bring him in. Please, yeah, let us bring him in. So I can see that happening. I can really, really see that happening. But we'll have to keep him. But it is interesting that Hones has come out and practically said that he wants to sign Wirtz. And it's so interesting how Germany operates. Like with England, you always see like people say, oh no, we can't talk about the club's players. We should not talk about other clubs' players. And they do back channel negotiations where Bayern just come out and say, you know what, we want to sign him. Yeah, we want to sign him. Yeah, we want him. Yeah, well, others like, they're like, yeah, but when we're negotiating with him, he's the one who's asking for more money, so we're not going to give him more money. It's like so how they use the media. It's so interesting to know and to see. So I find that very, very different. I wouldn't say it's refreshing, but I would say I find it very different in how Bayern operate compared to other clubs, particularly in the Premier League, which is what we usually follow. So that's something to consider as well. But those are things that Hunes said that I thought really interesting to me, and share your thoughts on that as well. I thought they were big comments, and some of them were big statements as well, but really worth listening to. So do go check out that interview as well if you haven't yet. And then the final one that we'll talk about, I was really hoping that this wouldn't be a Manchester United one, because we've talked so much about Manchester United throughout, in all of our shows recently, because they've been so active in the transfer market. I think the only big news, and it's good that there's not a lot, but the only big news that has come out so far is that Manchester United are not going to pay the buy option that they have for Sofyan Amrabat. So Amrabat had come on loan last season from Fiorentina. I think they'd signed him for about 5 or 10 million euros, something that they had paid for him to bring him on loan. And then they said that they had a buy option for about 20 million. That was the buy option. So that was to be triggered this season. That was what they were given. What they've now said is they're not going to pay 20 million euros. That was the buy option. I think it was 20 million euros, might have been 20 million pounds, but I think it was 20 million euros that they had a buy option, and they've said they're not going to trigger that. They want to sign him, but they want to pay a lower fee. That's what they have said. So they will now negotiate, or try to negotiate with Fiorentina on a lower transfer fee, which I think is okay, because if you're looking at 20 million euros, they've already paid about 10 million euros, I would assume. So you're looking at about the 30 million euro price for Amrabat, which is not bad, but I don't think he's a starting player. I don't think, and from the little I've seen, he actually kind of adjusted well towards the end of the season. I thought towards maybe the last 4-5 games of the season were really good for him. He really played very, very well. But those first 30-40 games, and maybe AFCON had something to do with it as well, but he just didn't look that good. So you can't really pay 30 million euros for a player who had 5 or 6 good games. So I think what they're saying, and I don't think Amrabat is going to be number one anyway, because they're going to bring in Ugart. If Ugart is coming in, then he's going to be number one to play alongside Menu. So then they need somebody as a backup, which I think they're looking at Amrabat as a backup. So in that case, you don't pay 30 million euros for a backup. So I think they're probably thinking, maybe if we can, because 30 million euros will be the total price tag that they had paid with the 10 million. So they're probably thinking, can we get him for maybe 15? Can we reduce it to maybe 25 million euros, which is decent enough that you pay for a backup that you can maybe then eventually resale and get some money from that. So and that's what they're looking at. I'm not sure if Fiorentina will accept it, and maybe other clubs will be interested in him as well. He's a decent player. There is a decent player in there, and he's still quite young in footballing terms. So he's in his prime, of course. He isn't someone very old. So there will be other clubs interested. I think it depends on how much Amrabat wants to come to Manchester United, what his role might be, and then what other clubs are willing to offer. But it is interesting. I'm not sure if I have feelings on this. I think it's fine that they have said that they are not going to trigger the buy clause. And what I think Ten Hag has always thought, I've got Toby Collier, who's played well in the last 2 games, and he's played okay in the last 2 games in preseason. Hasn't stood out to me in the way that Manu stood out, but he has done well. And so maybe Ten Hag is thinking, right, I've got this player that I can develop, so I'm not so keen on buying another midfielder. But if I can get Amrabat for a lower fee, then sure, I'm happy to work with that. So I think that's where they are at with Amrabat. I think 15 million euros, if they can negotiate it down to that would be a decent deal to do, and so they can get in another. But the other part, of course, is Casemiro. Will Casemiro be leaving? Because to me, that is a deal that needs to be. Casemiro has to go. They've got to find a way to get rid of him. Not just his wages. His wages, of course, very high. But more importantly than that, I think he's taking up a squad when he's not really that good. He's not been as good as last season, and he's not looked that good as well in the first 2 games of preseason. So yes, there is a decent player there, but I don't think he's suited to United anymore, and you don't want to keep a player like that on the bench. A player like Casemiro being on the bench is a big problem for Manchester United morale-wise. So I think they'll be very much thinking, let's move him on. We want to move him on. Let's move him on, and that's what they will be looking at. So if they can get him out, then I think we'll see the Amrabat deal really progress. But I think otherwise, it is a little bit at the moment looking like the Amrabat deal is not being done, because they are probably at the moment keeping Casemiro because they're not able to sell it. So anyway, we'll see what happens there. And that's about it for now. I think we've covered a lot of big stories. I'm sure there's a few stories that I missed, but we might do another show in the evening. So we'll see if there's more stories to talk about. If there's more stories to talk about, I'll do another show in the evening. So you could stay tuned for that. Otherwise, we'll be back tomorrow. But I hope you enjoyed the show. I like talking about this stuff. Do share your comments, of course. Let me know what you think about the transfer stories that we've talked about. Do you think Liverpool should sign Inacio? Do you think Osimhen, Napoli should accept a lower fee for Osimhen? Whatever I've talked about, let me know in the comments what do you think about it, because I always love to hear your thoughts. I would love to hear your comments and your views, because that's what makes it exciting, right? When I hear views of other fans, and as I'm not a fan of Liverpool, I'm not a fan of Bayern, I'm not a fan of Napoli or PSG, so it's good to hear from fans of those clubs as to what you think about the things, the transfer stories and the news that we're discussing. So put that in the comments. I always love to hear that. Do subscribe to our channel. If you haven't yet, close to 450 subscribers, as I said. So your support will really help in getting over that mark. So really hope you do subscribe to the channel. Do smash a like on this video if you enjoyed it. Smash a like for for the price of Inacio or the Hojbjerg transfer. So much we discussed. So please do smash a like. Yeah, and take care. Have a good Sunday, and hopefully we'll see you again soon. Take care. Bye bye.